Hey, welcome to another one of our self-esteem mini convos. And today we have Dr. Amanda Nicholson, who is just in the nick of time for this conversation. Hey, Dr. Amanda.
Hey, Donna, Dr. Donna, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a beautiful day in Arizona, so no complaints.
Arizona. Well, can you tell the people about yourself?
So, I am Dr. Amanda Nicholson. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist that specializes in sex therapy. My specialty specifically is very, very niched. I work with very niched. I work with Black women of faith around their sexual identity development. So, think about your good girl, church girls who are in the process of reconciling their faith with their sexuality, or may have experienced some religious trauma that's keeping them from having a great sex life or just high self-esteem.
See, and that's why we're talking to you. I mean, you already said the magic word. The magic word has been said, self-esteem. So I've been starting off with this one because I recognize that everybody has a different definition, and I want to capture as many different definitions as possible. So how do you define self-esteem?
Oh, that's such a good question. And it's a good question for me because my dad has always instilled self-esteem into his children,
Mhm.
especially his girls. And so whenever I think about self-esteem, I always think about the saying, how you gonna love someone else if you don't love yourself?
Mhm.
And because my dad says it all the time, he still says it to me, and I'm 35. But for me, self-esteem really is just owning who you are, no matter where you are right now. I love this version of myself. I may not be the way I want to be. My hair may not look like I want it to look today. I may not have the wardrobe that I want or the job that I want, but I accept me for who I am today in this moment so
Mhm.
that I feel more confident as I move forward. And then when I get into that space, I'm not seeking more because I've loved myself for who I am in the moment every day.
I love this definition that owning and loving who you are, where you are right now. I
Mhm.
think that a lot of people's self-esteem is more conditional in that, oh, I'll love me when I have this much money, this type of partner, some kids, a house, whatever, whatever. It's tomorrow I'll love. And I mean, as the saying goes, tomorrow never comes. So
Mm.
when, if not now, when?
Yeah, yeah.
I really love this definition. So then how would you say that self-esteem develops?
So that's a great question. One I'm still trying to figure out, honestly, because I think it changes with every age and every stage of your life. And so I am in a point now, because we're also friends. I'm on a new journey. I'm in a new position and in a new space where I never thought that I would see myself. And so every day I'm having to get up and say, "You're that girl. You got it. It's okay." And so I feel that self-esteem is always developing. I
Mhm.
If anybody is confident, I mean, yes, you can be confident every single day, but also I feel like when you go into new situations, you always have to hype yourself up, right? You always have to get yourself to a place to say, no, you got this, you can do it. I, there are so many people who have high self-esteem. They are very confident in themselves. And I feel that even through that high self-esteem, high confidence, there are moments where they may not feel worthy. They may not accept themselves because self-esteem is always developing. And what just came to mind when you asked that was Beyonce Bowl. And there was a clip that somebody posted, and they were saying, in this moment, I remember that Beyonce is just a girl who just wants to do a good job. And it was the end of her performance, and you could see her going like this. at the end before they were bringing her down on the platform. And I was thinking, wow, if Beyonce go into something thinking, "Ooh, I hope this all goes well," knowing she is Beyonce, that also means the rest of us are allowed to have moments of like nervousness. We are allowed to have moments where we may doubt ourselves. It can be a moment, it's okay, because like I said, it's ever developing. I don't feel like you get to an age and you just got it right. If you love somebody, please have them call me so I can know what age that's supposed to be.
Like I really love what you said, right? Because it sort of reminded me of like this piece around like competence is very much a part
Mhm.
of confidence. But when I think of self-esteem, specifically secure self-esteem, I'm thinking like even when you're not confident, you still like yourself, you
Mhm.
still know yourself, and as a result, you're willing to try. Growth mindset.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, learning French, I ain't got no confidence in that. I mean, the extent of my French before I started was Le Poisson from The Little Mermaid. Le Poisson, Le Poisson. How I love Le Poisson. And I'm just like, that was the extent of my confidence in French. And I could go like un, deux, trois, right? But like, that was it. And now I can say sentences, which is a little bit different. I can hear a thing or two and be like, you understood that. I'm reading Harry Potter in French.
Mm.
Um, don't like the turf, but it is actually a really good learning tool. So, like, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think that we forget that we're allowed to try new things, and that somehow, and we're still allowed to maintain our humanity and feel our feelings. Because when you said Beyonce is cheering for herself, like, yeah, I did that, killed it, and it's like, yeah, how come we're not? We don't even allow ourselves to do that, because too many times it moves straight into this category of must be arrogant, and
Mhm.
you're not being humble.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, because the thing is, in order to have self-esteem, I have to have like at least this much bit of arrogance, like a little bit, because I have to be confident. And sometimes, when we think about the fake it till you make it, you don't have to be arrogant for the rest of your lives, people, before I say this. You have to have a little bit of arrogance if you are not yet confident enough in that area of your life,
Mm.
right? To step into a room for the first time, I'm thinking in front of 100, 200 people to speak.
You are reminding me of the first time that I did a keynote, 2017, December, at the National Sex Ed Conference. It felt like an out of body experience. And if there wasn't a recording, I would not have known how it went.
So, and because my thing is, well, I'm reading Throwing the Glass right now. So the thing is, you have to barrel down into your power,
Ooh,
right?
hey, Lynn, barreling down.
We got to barrel down. Got to barrel down. You got to barrel down into your power of whatever you have to be able to get on that stage. Like for you, it was an out of body experience, but you did it. So you know that you'll be able to do it again. And the
And
next, yeah, and continue to do. So with that, it allows you to say, I don't have to be arrogant about this. I don't have to have that little bit of arrogance. I'm confident in myself to be able to do these things at this point. I have high self-esteem high enough self-esteem to remember I did it. I crushed it. I've taken whatever feedback I needed to take from others and from me watching myself to apply it to keep going forward, which in turn continues to build your self-esteem and the value of self that you have.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that into the space. I even like your definition of arrogant, or the use of arrogance as a
Mhm.
tool to help you build up your confidence and your self-esteem. Because people have asked, like, what's the difference between arrogance and confidence? And I say the person who's watching.
Ooh.
I'm looking like it's not even about me. A lot of people think that I'm arrogant. And I'm just like, am I arrogant, or are you feeling uncomfortable with a dark-skinned somebody who shows up as she is unapologetically? And furthermore, do you feel like you are less than in my presence, despite the fact that I never said it and I won't treat you that way? So but I like your definition of using it as fuel for your confidence, as fuel for your self-esteem, as a way to remember who you are, what you know about yourself, that self-concept, and sort of use it as like this driving factor. Which brings me to this question: how and when will a person learn to accept themselves for who they are?
Woo. These some heavy headed questions.
I mean, and I only got one more. So, like, after this one,
Whoa. Whoa. Ooh, okay. Can you ask one more time?
yes. How and when will a person learn to accept themselves for who they are?
Wow. At 35, I'm kidding. Um, but honestly, I turned 35 last year, and last year was the year I was like, I don't care. Like, what? I don't care. And I feel like for me, it was more so, I don't care because I've done everything that everybody said I needed to do in order to be valued by society. I got the degrees, all of them that you're supposed to get. Got the degrees, got the job, got the this is the Baptist church girl side of me. Didn't get pregnant before I did all these different things. I did it. But at the end of the day, I was like, so how much of this was for you?
Oh,
Right. And as we move forward, how much of it is going to be for you? Granted, my parents didn't tell me what degrees or anything like that to get, but we know the expectations, especially for women in the Black community, to be able to fend for ourselves in the case that our men cannot. No slight to Black men, but history is history. And yeah, history is history. And I did it. I did it all. I did it right. And when I got the job in my field, which has blessed me tremendously, I sat down one day and I said, well, what are some things that you are doing for you? Right? What are some things that you are doing that align with your passions, the things that you're actually interested in? And how much time are you spending by yourself? Like,
mm-hmm.
what does that look like? And I feel like over the last year, I would actually say year and a half, I've done more things that align to the things that I want to do, right? And within that, I've built this self concept around myself, this acceptance of myself that I'm still working on. Granted, I can't wait till 40 because I feel like she's gonna be solidified. But solidified. So I'm working on all of these things. And the more that I do things that I enjoy, the more that I do things by myself, because it's allowing me to learn myself, what I like, what I dislike, what I will tolerate, what I will no longer tolerate, and what I need is helping me build this self concept of like, wow, like you really are this dope person. Everybody can tell you that you are dope. But until you see that you're dope and that you're amazing, there is no way that you're going to accept that. And I feel like I said, over the last year and a half, the more I've done, the more time I spent with myself, the more experiences I've allowed myself to have, the more I've said no, exercise my boundaries, the more that I have been able to lean into myself and accept myself for who I am.
Oh goodness. There was so much in that. And I think the thing that really stood out for me was that piece around what I think of it as borrowing self-esteem. or borrowing esteem. Like
Mm-hmm.
when people hold you in esteem, you can borrow it. You can use it as a validating factor or a validating factor until you are able to be like, oh no, yeah, I validate it now. And now you just serve as confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
Like to move people from validation to confirmation. For me, that's what I want for most of us.
Yeah.
So that validating space is not a healthy one to stay in because, I mean, the tides can turn because people are still also dealing with their own narratives. And speaking of those narratives, this final question, what would you say is the role of the church in building or destroying self-esteem?
Oh, you trying to? That's what we do. It. That's the last question.
That's the last question.
That's the last.
You know
That's the
what?
last one. Woo! You know I could go on and on about this, so this is not fair at all.
I mean, just give us a little sprinkling, a little
Let's
pour,
break them.
a deluge, if you will. Which, whatever you are feeling like giving us on this very sunny day. Like, I mean, if you want us to drip drop, we'll drip drop with you. But
Okay.
again, if you want a good drizzle, a deluge, we here. We here. We got
Okay.
umbrellas.
Okay. Okay. So to build a self-esteem, as we know, the Black church is the cornerstone of the Black community. Most people don't see it like that. And at the end of the day, even if you don't attend church, it has immense value and foundation in your life. And because of this institution, it has built up the Black community for some people in negative ways, for some people in so in negative ways it's torn down, but there's so many positive things, right? Because of Black institutions, Black churches, we have our HBCUs, which then allow us as Black folks to be around each other, to build that self-esteem, to be in community with each other, which is a long, rich history. And then even if we go to just now, how churches contribute to students' college funds, they pour into them, how churches help people figured out what they're good at. There are a lot of churches that have stewardship. So is your stewardship in leadership? Is it in service? Like, what does that look like? And how can we help you cultivate that talent of yours? And then we have the instances where in some churches we still have thinking that isn't healthy, especially for women or those who are part of the LGBTQIA plus communities, right? We still use negative rhetoric that tear people down, that does not make them feel like they are worthy of a God where we are all made in their image, right? Which means we are all worthy of God's love, no matter how we identify, what we look like, any mistakes that we make. And so I feel like an affirming church will always build somebody up, right? They will always pour into them. I feel like the problem is sometimes is that there are churches that don't move forward with the times, right? We have leaders that don't want to learn beyond what they have seen. We have leaders who are only in the church, so they don't work at outside jobs. So they aren't around HR. They aren't getting DEI trainings or different things like that. And so I feel like in those instances, the church is very powerful in both ways. It can build us up or it can tear us down. And it all depends on the leadership that's within the church.
Mm. Thank you for bringing that in. I like the robustness of the answer and the way in that it can build up and tear down. I think I got caught I saw this video on TikTok and maybe I could link it or something if I could find it again. But it was just like, it's kind of hard to have a fullness of self-esteem and be steeped in the church at the same time. Again, like you said, depending upon the church, because it's this, you're nothing without God, that God wants to strip you down to nothing for you to be nothing and thus be reliant upon, except some people do it to make it that you're nothing without the church as opposed to God, which I think changes the conversation a bit. It's the shaming of sexuality against the, like juxtaposed against this idea that, well, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. So it's like, is my sexuality not fearfully and wonderfully made? Or like, what's this? And then, like you said, the discouragement that happens by gender. And then specifically, what I get into is how, and this about to sound a little wild. As much as there is a controlling aspect for women, I feel like the church is constantly saying that men are not worthy, that men are not loved, that men are not, that they shouldn't have confidence or self-esteem, and that they don't have any self-control. And because I mean, the self-control piece is like, well, hey, you women, you wear clothes because he can't control himself, because he doesn't know who he is, and he can't grasp with two hands to that thing. And I'm just like, that's not a love to men. And specifically, I have a podcast, and I was talking to I want to say Christian Smith, and he is very dope. Like, I don't
So
know if he
great.
identifies as a theologian, but certainly a pastor. And he talks about sin as harm, and thus to avoid sin as trying to reduce harm. And when I think of that rhetoric, I'm just like, well, the church is harmful, which means it's committing sin. But beyond that, it's enabling men, which is also harmful, which is thus another sin.
Yes. Yes. Right? Yes. Just yes. Because there is a book that I read, and I can't think of the author right now. It's called Good Christian Sex. And
Got it.
yes. And good. I love that book because the author discusses sex and sin from an ethics perspective. And are you being ethical through your sexuality, right? Are you using your sexuality to be manipulative? Are you like, in what ways are you using or weaponizing your sexuality that causes harm to another person? And that's when, again, it becomes a sin.
I mean, you better come on. Good Christian Sex. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's okay. I'm going to put the book somewhere here
Yes.
so that you can see it. And I'll make sure that the link and all the information is in the notes for this particular episode. I want to say thank you for answering these questions, but we're moving into these rapid fire ones. They're the same every time. It says yes or no, true or false, this or that sort of thing. There is a fence, but you can't sit on it. You must have an answer, yes or no. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Self-esteem is the same for everyone.
No.
Self-esteem is better built alone.
No.
Self-esteem plays a role in relationships.
Yes.
Jealousy means you have low self-esteem.
No.
Okay. You look like you want to add a little sprinkling on something. So go ahead. Now's your sprinkle moment.
I'm going to say no, mainly because I don't feel like envy is always tied to I'm not confident in myself. I feel like sometimes envy and jealousy can be healthy because it can also, you can see like, oh, I could have had that if I would have did X, Y, Z. So yeah, that was my hesitation.
Word. Someone has said something like, sometimes we all want Beyonce's outcomes, but we don't want to put in Beyonce's work. And so you can become jealous of what you believe someone has that you could also have.
Yes.
But you also have to do the work to recognize where you have been and have not been doing your part, and also knowing that there are still other factors at the same time that can prevent, or that you have more to overcome in a certain space than someone else.
Yeah.
I know that for me, consistency is where I don't shine.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm working on consistency right now for myself and routine at the end of my year with this first quarter. So yeah, I get that. That's why I was like, envy and jealousy doesn't mean you have low self-esteem. Sometimes we envy people's work ethic because it just ain't in us, right? And we're like, dang, I wish I could, I- but yeah.
Yeah. And I know for me, I have opposing wishes often.
Yeah.
So like a wish for more rest does not necessarily match with a wish to do X, Y, and Z and have X, Y, and Z outcome. And
Hmm.
they're contradictory sometimes. That jump just be looking a little like, girl, you don't know what you want. Meanwhile, can you leave the folk with one tip on building up more secure self-esteem for themselves? Like, what's one tip out of everything that we discussed? What's one tip?
My biggest tip is you have to spend time with yourself.
Mm.
You have to spend time with yourself. I know many of us don't like ourselves, and I feel like that's why it's important. We avoid spending time with ourselves by being around others and through other maladaptive behaviors such as drinking, drugs, partying excessively, overworking ourselves, because it allows us to avoid being alone and enjoying our own company. I feel like in order to learn about yourself, you have to spend time alone, which helps you to know what you need to work on within yourself in order to build your self-esteem. So you can know, what do I accept? What do I need? What no longer serves me in my personality that will allow me to love myself more.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Gotta spend time with yourself. And
Yes.
where can the people stalk you? Where can they find you? Where can they learn more, interact with you?
Oh, so the people can find me at Dr. Amanda Nicholson on Instagram. If you are in the Atlanta area, I'm no longer there, but I am licensed in Georgia still. I do virtual appointments with clients. And so you can go to, it's not in the nick of time.com, it's intimetherapy.com. In the nick of time was taken, rude. So you can find me at intimetherapy.com. So there is a YouTube channel out there just with the resources, and it's called The Prude's Guide to Therapy. I'm no longer active on it, but there's some good tips and different things on there as well.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, for talking to us about self-esteem, for giving us that good on these goods on what we need to be doing next. Thank you for spending your time with us. And for those of you watching, hopefully there'll be another one of these soon. So buckle up, Buttercup. More work coming.
Thanks
Bye.
for having me. Bye.